CBS News has obtained evidence that the Peace Corps is struggling with sexual assaults in its ranks. The survey shows nearly 20% of volunteers experience some type of sexual assault. More than half of those say they suffered repeat attacks. Pressure to change a culture of victim blaming goes back years. But Kris Van Cleave shows us how some survivors still claim they are blamed or punished. He's in Washington with our investigation. Kris, good morning.
Good morning. Nearly 7,000 Peace Corps volunteers are currently serving in about 65 countries. And according to a recent anonymous Peace Corps safety questionnaire obtained by CBS News, roughly 1 in 5 volunteers reported being sexually assaulted during their service. The report also shows nearly half didn't report the assaults. One volunteer wrote, "In reporting an assault, I made myself a target."
My thought was they're going to rape me. These men are going to try to rape me.
23-year-old Peace Corps volunteer Danae Smith had been in the remote Dominican Republic town of Los Mosquitos for 8 months when in April, 2 men with machetes forced her off the village's main road. Smith fought them off and reported the assault to the Peace Corps. Within a week, the agency told her she was going home.
And they also told me that my attack had occurred because I had been walking in my sight, and that as a volunteer, it was my job to have been more proactive to prevent it from happening.
More than 500 volunteers have reported experiencing a sexual assault in a little over 2 years. We spoke with nearly a dozen who questioned how their recent cases were handled. They told us they felt criticized and were threatened they would be fired. 5 years ago, the Peace Corps, a government agency, faced intense scrutiny over its response to sexual assaults. Congress passed a law, and the agency's then director vowed change.
I hired a nationally recognized leader in victims' rights to be our first agency's victims advocate.
That leader was Kelly Green.
Then I'm getting phone calls and I'm getting emails from returned volunteers that are in tears because they can't get the help that they need.
CBS News found some Peace Corps employees attempting to limit the number of in-country counseling sessions for sexual assault survivors to a maximum of 6. In this 2014 email, a Peace Corps clinical psychologist said of a volunteer, "The need for ongoing therapy is an indication the volunteer was not a good fit for Peace Corps service." After another volunteer asked for additional counseling, a Peace Corps medical officer sent this email saying, "I'm sure this will make no difference in her behavior."
I pushed the agency to really do what they have the capability of doing. And that's what's so frustrating, because they have the ability to do this, and it is a choice not to.
Earlier this month, the Peace Corps suspended her without pay for allegedly creating a hostile work environment. But Green says she was punished for standing up for the victims she was hired to protect. Bonnie Scott was a Peace Corps volunteer in Albania. Earlier this year, she says she alerted the Peace Corps one of its American officials was allegedly sexually assaulting Albanian women.
He was given the option to resign rather than face misconduct charges, which meant that everything would be covered up.
Shortly after the official sent this email saying he was resigning for personal reasons, the Peace Corps fired Scott for improperly filling out paperwork.
They basically kicked me out 10 days after they let the sex offender just resign.
Inspector General reports show multiple cases of Peace Corps personnel accused in sexual assaults resigning ahead of administrative action and then being allowed to reapply to the agency. A 2014 IG report warned the Peace Corps screening process for rehiring was not detecting past misconduct. One volunteer who admitted to violating the agency's sexual assault policy was later hired to work at the agency's headquarters in Washington, D.C.
That person is no longer employed by Peace Corps, but I will also say that we are putting in place systems, mechanisms that will make sure that that doesn't happen in the future.
Person after person paints this picture of, at least some percentage of the time, there is what appears to be blaming or retaliatory responses to people who have just suffered a trauma.
This is unacceptable to us, and we are trying to change a culture. Our best indicator of volunteer satisfaction with our services is our sexual assault response quality survey, and 96% have said that they're satisfied with their service.
That anonymous survey was sent to 183 people. Just 52 responded.
We have made enormous progress, but it is a huge task, and every single day we're providing better care.
But Danae Smith feels only disappointment.
I feel like Peace Corps failed me every step of the way.
So far, the Peace Corps says it has instituted more than 30 reforms regarding sexual assault and works to retrain employees who appear unsympathetic to survivors. Kelly Green, the Peace Corps victim advocate that's been suspended by the agency, is pursuing whistleblower protection, but the Peace Corps disputes any claims it retaliated against her. Gail?
Thank you, Kris. Raised some very troubling issues in that report.
Yeah, I'm glad to see that there's going to be some transparency and some reforms made. Very important indeed.
I think that investigation will continue.
Because what the Peace Corps does is a
Yes.
wonderful,
Exactly. You ought to be able to
wonderful
do that
organization.
with great joy and not have fear.
Right, and not have fear, indeed.
A bit of a taint there.
Thank you so much, Kris.
Thank you, Kris.